The grand hall shimmered with golden chandeliers, the air thick with the scent of roses and the low hum of anticipation. Guests whispered excitedly, champagne glasses clinking softly, while rows of elegantly dressed friends and family waited for the ceremony to begin. But in the midst of all the beauty and celebration, one man's heart was a storm of anger and shame. Jonathan Harper, standing at the altar in a perfectly tailored suit, felt the old, familiar sting of resentment twist in his chest. Today was meant to be the happiest day of his life, yet he couldn't shake the image of the woman who had given him life, his mother, Margaret, standing in the doorway, smiling timidly at him. With a cold exhale, he turned away from her, whispered words that cut deeper than any blade, and instructed the wedding coordinator to escort her out. Shock rippled through the room, and murmurs grew louder as Margaret's eyes filled with tears, her trembling hands clutching the straps of her simple handbag. She had raised him alone, had worked endless hours, had carried the weight of his father's abandonment and the harsh judgments of the world, but today, in her own son's wedding, she was cast aside. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of forgiveness, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Jonathan had his reasons, of course, or at least he told himself he did. Over the years, every argument, every misunderstanding between him and Margaret had festered into a wall he refused to scale. He blamed her for the strict rules, for the discipline that sometimes felt suffocating, for the quiet disapproval he carried like a scar into adulthood. He thought excluding her from his wedding would be a simple act of control, a way to preserve perfection in a day that was supposed to be flawless. But as he smiled at his fiancée, Victoria, and shook hands with relatives, a hollow ache began gnawing at his pride. Something about seeing his mother's small, broken figure being led away made the celebration feel suddenly unreal. Margaret walked through the cold streets of their small town in Ohio, the echo of her son's words ringing in her ears. She felt humiliated, yes, but beneath that, a deeper, more painful wound, a longing to understand why her only child had pushed her out, even as he vowed to cherish someone else forever. She passed the rows of parked cars, the warm glow of porch lights spilling into the night, and found herself stopping at a small chapel she had loved as a girl. The doors were closed, but she lingered, head bowed, whispering prayers for Jonathan, for herself, and for a heartache that seemed endless. Meanwhile, inside the wedding hall, Jonathan's celebration was beginning to feel brittle. The music played, but laughter felt forced, and the vows he was about to take seemed hollow when he realized that the woman who had shaped him, who had endured so much to give him the life he had, was not there. As the ceremony started, Jonathan caught a glimpse of a small figure standing outside the hall's grand windows, someone draped in shadows yet unmistakably familiar. His heart jolted. It was Margaret, standing in the rain, watching. For a moment, time slowed, and the noise of celebration faded into silence. He could no longer ignore the truth. No matter the mistakes, no matter the arguments, his mother had never stopped loving him. And in that love, raw and unyielding, he felt the walls of resentment cracking. Panic and regret collided inside him, forcing him to act. Without thinking, he excused himself from the aisle and ran into the night, ignoring the whispers and shocked stares of the guests. Rain soaked his hair and suit, but he barely noticed, his focus fixed on the woman who had never truly abandoned him. Margaret looked down at her soaked shoes, expecting nothing, preparing herself for the harsh words she might finally hear. But Jonathan's voice, trembling yet urgent, called out across the street. He knelt before her, tears mingling with the rain on his face, and whispered apologies that words could scarcely contain. He admitted every bit of pain he had harbored, confessed to every moment he had misunderstood her, and finally, he allowed himself to feel the grief of lost years. Margaret's tears fell freely as she enveloped him in a hug that spoke of forgiveness, of understanding, of a love that had never faltered despite human failings. They walked back together, side by side, as the guests watched from the hall's windows. sensing that something miraculous had unfolded outside. When Jonathan returned to the wedding, his fiancée and the crowd were stunned. Victoria's eyes welled up with tears as she saw him take his mother's hand, guiding her to the front row. Margaret, radiant despite the rain, sat with a quiet dignity that commanded attention. The ceremony resumed, but it was transformed. The vows, now spoken with a heart unburdened by resentment, carried the weight of true understanding, and the room was filled not only with joy but with a profound sense of reconciliation. The rest of the evening unfolded like a dream. Jonathan danced with his mother, Victoria at his side, while laughter and tears mingled freely. Friends commented on the palpable shift in the atmosphere, sensing that the day had transcended ordinary happiness. Guests remarked that it was not just a wedding, but a celebration of the human heart's capacity to heal, to forgive, and to embrace the imperfect but unwavering love of family. Margaret's presence, once thought to be a source of tension, became the most cherished part of the night. Jonathan and Margaret spent hours talking that night, sharing stories of the past, of struggles and triumphs, of moments that had shaped them both. The walls between them had not just crumbled, they had been replaced with bridges of understanding, sturdy and resilient. Jonathan realized that the love his mother had given him, even when he had felt anger or shame, was the very foundation upon which he had built his life. And for Margaret, seeing her son acknowledge his mistakes, embrace her, and allow love to guide him, was a fulfillment of every sacrifice she had ever made. Weeks later, Jonathan and Margaret returned to that small chapel she had lingered in that rainy night. Together they knelt, hands clasped, hearts full. Jonathan whispered thanks for her patience, her strength, and her unwavering faith. Margaret's tears of joy mingled with gratitude, for in her heart, she had witnessed the miracle of change, the realization that love and forgiveness could indeed transform even the deepest wounds. This story reminds us that even when we are hurt, even when pride and anger drive us apart, love has the power to heal. It teaches us that second chances are always possible if we have the courage to face our mistakes and embrace those we have wronged. No one is beyond redemption, and no love is wasted when it is genuine. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Share your thoughts, your stories of forgiveness, or simply a word of encouragement. Your engagement helps spread hope and reminds us all of the power of love. And before you leave, I have a special request. Comment the word hope if you believe in second chances, just as Jonathan and Margaret did.